Hey guys, Will here. So it is finally Black Friday, and I've just noticed on the screen that my logo behind me looks like devil wings. Anyway, we'll persevere. So finally Black Friday, and I know that a bunch of you guys have been waiting a very long time to find out what kind of sim racing deals we'll be able to pick up in 2020. Been a bit of a crazy year, and yeah, nobody really kind of knew what to expect. Now, what's happened this year is different companies have launched their deals at different times. Some companies still haven't launched their deals at the time of making this video either. So originally I was planning on sort of trying to do a video bringing all the deals in together, but that's not really going to be possible. So what I'll be doing is updating some links on my website, which I've linked down in the description below for you guys. And if I come across anything in particular that's amazing, I'll let you guys know there, as well as in our Discord community too. So make sure you check that out. We do have a bunch of spotters out there at the moment that are posting up deals as they see them as well. So definitely check that out. But the focus of today's video is the Fanatec deals specifically. So they're running a 20% off campaign on a bunch of exciting products, most of which we have in front of us here at the moment. No new product announcements this year, unfortunately, or for Black Friday at least, but Thomas being the CEO of Fanatec, did sort of hint on the forums the other day that there might be some things coming pretty soon. So that's pretty exciting. But what I want to do today is run you through the products that are part of the deal, or the deals for Black Friday 2020 for Fanatec, and basically give you my opinions on which ones I think are the best deals, some comparisons between them as well, and hopefully answer as many questions as I possibly can in as short a space as possible. Now, you guys have been hitting me up with a bunch of questions via Discord and comments as well, so I'll try and answer as many of those as possible too. And what I have done is I've created a page on my website that a lot of you have probably already seen, again, linked down in the description as well as above my head for you right now. And that takes you through all of the deals and the savings that you make on each of them, as well as the bundle deals that existed prior to the Black Friday deals as well. So Fanatec do have a bunch of bundles that include some of their more premium products, so the Podium series, and some of those are really great savings too. So link down in the description to that webpage, and I'd recommend sort of having that up on the screen while you're sort of listening and following along in this video too. Now, we'll just quickly mention for full disclosure as well that the links that are on that webpage are Fanatec affiliate links. So when you click on the more info buttons, that will take you through to Fanatec's website to purchase the product, and we will earn a small commission from those sales. Now, if you want to support another content creator, if you've got a favorite content creator that you'd love to support that you know is part of the Fanatec affiliate program, you're more than welcome to use my website as a reference and then go and click on their links. But if you do enjoy the content that we put together here at Boosted Media, then I would really appreciate your support there. It doesn't cost you anything extra. Just simply clicking on those more info buttons will take you through to Fanatec's website via our affiliate link. So thank you very much for the support there. But let's get into the products now. So I think we'll start off looking at the wheelbases, and then we'll move on to the wheels in a little bit more detail after that. So let's just move the Formula Carbon wheel aside for now and put these two a little closer to each other. And just before we get into this as well, I will mention, if you scroll down a little further on the webpage as well, I do have my all-encompassing Fanatec Buyer's Guide 2020, which goes through my product recommendations from the entire range of Fanatec products. There's also a written version of the guide there as well that goes through even more products. So definitely check that out too if you're not sure. We also have our comparison video there between the Club Sport Wheelbase 2.5 and the CSL Elite 2. So that goes into a lot more detail in terms of the driving experience and so forth. But let's get into this now. So the saving on the Club Sport Wheelbase 2.5 as of right now is $109.99 in US dollars. Now, if you are interested in pricing for other regions as well, click on the accordion buttons and that will take you to the various different regions and your localized pricing. We're just going to talk in US dollars for the purpose of this video, simply because that's where I know the majority of people watching this are going to be from. So apologies to anybody who that might confuse, but follow along on the website and you'll see your localized pricing. So $439.96 for the Club Sport Wheelbase 2.5, $319.96 for the Wheelbase Plus, the CSL Elite. So a saving of $79.99 on the Elite and $109.99 on the Club Sport 2.5. Now, the question that I get asked most of all between these two, well, there's two questions. People want to know the differences between the CLS Elite Wheelbase version 1.1, which is actually what we have in front of us here, and the Plus PS4 version, as well as the differences between the CSL Elite and the Club Sport Wheelbase 2.5. And if we jump on the website quickly, I think one of the reasons why people get a little bit confused about that is if you scroll down on the CSL Elite page, you can actually see it says that it borrows the technology or the mechanics in the wheelbase from the Club Sport wheelbase. And I think that's confused a lot of people. But what's important to understand is that the rest of the internals are different between the two. So obviously this has got a more premium sort of fit and finish to the overall look and feel of the product, but also the internal mechanism in terms of how the belt drive and everything works are different too. So the Club Sport wheelbase 2.5 does feel a lot better to drive with than the CSL Elite does. Let's just get that out of the way straight away. And as I said, we do have the link down in the description below to the video where we compared the two side by side in terms of the driving experience. So overall, the driving experience is definitely more refined, smoother, and a little bit more precise with the Club Sport wheelbase 2.5. Now, we don't have exact specs in terms of the strength of the force feedback, but we believe the Club Sport wheelbase 2.5 sits at around about 8 Newton meters of torque peak, whereas the CSL Elite sits at around the sort of 6.5 Newton meter range. Now, it's not massively noticeable when you're driving, and I think that, you know, most people will be happy with the strength that the CSL Elite provides. It's more just about that overall refinement and smoothness in the quality of the force feedback that the CSW 2.5 brings on top of the CSL Elite. So, look, when you look at the pricing there, it's about a 20-25% difference between the two. For me, at least, I would say the Club Sport wheelbase 2.5 is worth the extra over the cost of the CSL Elite. Of course, remember though that the Club Sport wheelbase 2.5 isn't compatible natively with the PlayStation 4. So if you do want to play on a PlayStation 4, you will need to buy a drive hub. And that's sort of like an adapter, which basically tricks the console into thinking that it's got a different type of wheel attached that is compatible. I think it's a Logitech that it uses. And yeah, it sort of adapts the force feedback. Now, I haven't actually driven with one of those personally, so I don't know what impact it actually has on the overall experience of driving. But yeah, I would definitely say if you're gaming on an Xbox or a PC, then the Club Sport wheelbase, if you can stretch the extra 20-25% in cost, is worth the extra, and definitely a really good buy at the moment with the 20% off. Now, the other important question to answer is the differences between the CSL Elite wheelbase version 1.1 and the PS4 version. Now, obviously the PS4 version is PS4 compatible, whereas the version 1.1 isn't. But there are a couple of other very subtle differences. A lot of people say that they're completely different internally. Now, I actually did speak to one of the engineers at Fanatec this morning to clarify this 100% for you guys, and I can tell you unequivocally that they are exactly the same internals in terms of the motor and the cogging and all that sort of stuff. The only difference is in the electronics and some of the circuitries. So more specifically, obviously the PS4 version has the PS4 security chip to add the PS4 and PS5 compatibility, but it also shows up when you connect it to a PC as two separate devices, as you might have seen with the DD1, DD2, and I think the Club Sport wheelbase from memory does it as well. And that allows us to have a little bit of extra functionality in terms of some of the peripherals that we can connect. So it's not going to be a big deal if you're driving with Club Sport wheels, but if you are moving up to something like the button module endurance, like what we have on the Porsche 911 GT3 R wheel, for example, then the possibility for compatibility in the future, even though it isn't there now, does exist with the PS4 version of the CSL Elite, and I'm hoping that we will actually see that implemented before too long, although I don't have any insider information on that. But I'd say the likelihood of compatibility for some of those more advanced peripherals on the wheelbase 1.1 is less likely than it is on the PS4 version. So I'd say that even if you are playing on a PC or an Xbox and don't actually need that PS4 compatibility, then the PS4 version probably is the better buy, simply because of the potential for compatibility later on. Just something for you guys to consider there. So otherwise, the 1.1 and the PS4 versions are exactly the same as each other in terms of the overall driving experience. So I think that pretty much covers everything we need to in terms of the wheelbases themselves. One other thing we should mention as well is the Club Sport wheelbase 2.5, as of the time of making this video, is compatible with the button module endurance that we have on the 911 GT3 R wheel. So that is with the latest beta drivers, but the CSL Elite at the time of making this video isn't. So if that is important to you, if you are looking at buying one of those Porsche wheels, then you'll definitely want to be picking up the Club Sport wheelbase 2.5 rather than the CSL Elite. But let's move on now to some of the other deals. One of the most attractive ones, I think, is the Fanatec CSL Elite F1 set, which basically gives you everything you need to get up and running with Formula style cars. Now, I've had a little bit of experience with the wheel that comes with that set. Haven't actually got one here, unfortunately, right now to show you guys, but it is quite similar to the Formula Carbon, which is also on special at the moment. In terms of the basic functionality, pretty much exactly the same. It is just important to note that the steering wheel that does come with this bundle isn't Xbox compatible. So although the wheelbase and the pedals are, you will need an Xbox compatible wheel to put on it to use it with an Xbox. So just make sure that you guys are aware of that. And that is also the case, by the way, with the Formula Carbon wheel as well. Just while we're talking about that, that is also PS4 and PC compatible, but not Xbox compatible. So just to clarify exactly how that all works for you guys as well that might not be aware, PS4 compatibility comes from the wheelbase itself. So security chip is actually inside the wheelbase, whereas Xbox compatibility comes from a chip inside the wheel. So that's why sometimes you'll see on the Fanatec website Xbox ready, basically meaning that the wheelbase is compatible with an Xbox, but does need an Xbox compatible wheel connected to it for that compatibility to be, I guess, enabled, so to speak. So yeah, look, I'd say the CSL Elite is a really good deal. You might want to look at upgrading to the load cell kit. Unfortunately, that isn't part of the package, so that is, and it also isn't on special. So it is going to cost you a little bit extra to get that load cell. Just remember that if you are looking at upgrading to a load cell, you will want to consider what you're actually mounting this on. You can get away with having these pedals without the load cell just sitting on a floor or a very basic sort of wheel stand or something like that. But if you do upgrade to a load cell, you might find the pedals start sliding around on the floor. So just sort of consider the wider options there. Now we do have a video which I'll link down in the description below as well, talking about pedals in general in more detail and some of my recommendations around those. So definitely check that out if you're a little bit confused about that. But I would say, you know, just as a starter pack, so to speak, this is a really good bundle, and $139.99 US off the original price is definitely very attractive. So if you're playing mostly Formula style games, then definitely one to check out. Now this is probably a good segue into another question that I get asked an awful lot, which is it possible to get away with just having a Formula style wheel for driving all different types of cars, or do you really need to buy a round wheel as well? And it really comes down to the style of cars that you're driving. Obviously, if you're driving mostly Formula style cars, then you can get away with it. But I would definitely recommend that if you're doing rallying or drifting or any style of driving where you need to be able to slip the wheel through your hands, then it is absolutely vital that you have a round wheel, or at least a D-shaped wheel. D-shaped wheels you can get away with. Round wheels are ideal for being able to slip the wheel through your hands and catch at various different drift angles and slip angles and things like that. So you can get away with driving with a Formula style wheel, but I'd say that if you were only going to have one wheel, you would want to have a GT or a round style wheel rather than a Formula style wheel. So just consider that as well. You might want to use that little bit of extra money you saved on the CSL Elite F1 set to pick yourself up a nice round wheel as well. But yeah, look, otherwise, really good deal. We do, of course, also have the CSL Elite Racing Wheel officially licensed for PS4 package 2. That does come with the round style wheel, which is the same fundamental design as the WRC wheel that I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I would say if you're looking at doing more sort of GT or rally style driving, then you'd be better off probably looking at the CSL Elite Racing Wheel officially licensed for PS4. Remembering as well, you will need an Xbox compatible wheel to make that compatible with Xbox. But that is definitely the better buy if you're going to be doing more GT or rally or drifting style driving. And that is $399.96 as opposed to the $599.96 for the F1 bundle. So you can use that little bit of extra money that you saved there to look at getting some pedals, maybe second-hand pedals. A lot of people are upgrading their pedals at the moment too, so there are quite a few pedal sets available second-hand quite cheaply in various different places. So yeah, basically, I guess my summary there is GT style driving or rally style driving or drifting, you're better off looking at the Racing Wheel officially licensed for PS4. If you're after more Formula style, then go with the CSL Elite F1 bundle set that also comes with the pedals. And yeah, just make sure if you are looking at upgrading to a load cell as well, you'll also want to consider the cockpit that you're planning on putting it in or wheel stand, just to make sure it's not going to slide around. So yeah, the last thing I want is for you guys to go and buy a load cell and then not be able to use it because you don't have something sturdy that you can mount it to. So let's move on now into talking about the wheels that are available. So let's start off by talking about the Club Sport Steering Wheel Universal Hub for Xbox One, which unfortunately I don't have one here in front of me. It's actually part of a wheel that's at my brother Tom's house at the moment. But I've had quite a bit of experience with that one. And what I would say is that it can be a bit of a pain to work with in terms of getting the hardware mounted initially. It's quite fiddly opening it up and sort of getting everything wired in. I'll overlay some footage now for you guys so you can sort of see what I mean by that. But once it is all set up, it's a very versatile little module here. And basically the usefulness for this is if you want to mount aftermarket wheels. So say for example, you wanted to mount something like this Momo wheel, for example, you could mount that directly onto the Universal Hub and then that becomes compatible with your Fanatec wheelbases. Unfortunately, one of the things that Fanatec have done through their firmware and software and drivers is lockout compatibility for aftermarket devices. Now, there are some adapters available from sim racing machines and a couple of other companies that can work around that in various different levels of success. But basically, if you want to ensure compatibility, then you do need to use either a podium hub or the universal hub for Xbox One to make an aftermarket wheel compatible with a Fanatec wheelbase. So that is definitely a good opportunity to pick one of those up if you've sort of been wanting to do that but not wanting to fork out the money for the universal hub. And obviously it does have quite a lot of functionality on it too. You can access the tuning menu through the little display on the top, little 7 segment, as well as, you know, you've got a rotary encoder on the Xbox button. You've got a bunch of other buttons. Now the paddles on that are quite loose. They do have quite a lot of throw in it. It's definitely worth looking at potentially doing a magnetic paddle module upgrade on that. And that's actually what I ended up doing with mine on the flat 2 wheel. And we've got a review of the magnetic paddle module down in the description below for you guys as well if you want to check that out. There are some aftermarket upgrades available for these as well, which are quite cheap, and those are really good. And I actually reviewed one of those a while back as well, so I'll put a link down in the description for that as well. I would definitely say that the podium hub with the magnetic paddle modules is a nicer and more refined overall product, but obviously you would expect that for the additional cost. But if you're just looking for the easiest way within the Fanatec ecosystem, at least, to give yourself compatibility with a Fanatec wheelbase for an aftermarket wheel, then the universal hub for Xbox One is a good choice. So let's have a look at the Formula Carbon wheel next, and then we'll talk about the Porsche and the BMW wheel. So we'll just move those out of the way for you quickly and take a look at this guy. So this was actually one of the first wheels that I purchased from Fanatec along with the BMW wheel. I bought those along with the Club Sport Wheelbase 2.5 as my first Fanatec products. And look, I've absolutely loved this wheel. What I would say is that when I upgraded to my Formula V2 and then later on the limited edition 2020 F1 wheel, I did really appreciate particularly the thumb encoders, particularly for F1 2020 and F1 2019. I find I use these all the time for changing my fuel trim and my ERS modes, which are vitally important to be able to change on the fly in those games in particular. A lot of people obviously do make changes to those settings in other games too, but I found particularly for F1 2020 it was critical because you really, you know, you're wanting to change those settings while you're sort of mid-corner sometimes. And those thumb coders really do genuinely make it easy to do that without having to take your eyes off the road. And in VR as well, it's really important. So those are very, very powerful. But look, otherwise this wheel is absolutely fantastic. You've got your analog hat switch here on this side. You've got your 7-way funky switch on this side. And yeah, look, when I was using this one, I kind of alternated between using a button box for adjusting my fuel trims and ERS. And then I ended up later on just changing it. So I kind of used these buttons along the top as a plus and minus. And that worked quite well once I got used to it. But I definitely found the Formula V2 and the 2020 wheel to be easier to use and ended up making me faster simply due to the presence of those thumb encoders. So I would definitely say don't overlook the importance of those if you're driving competitively. I would say it definitely does make a difference. But obviously the Formula V2 wheel not being on special at the moment, it is significantly more expensive than the Formula Carbon. So you're gonna have a good driving experience with the Formula Carbon. It's a fantastic wheel. And in my opinion, this is actually one of the nicer looking Fanatec wheels as well. It's got a really nice shiny carbon fiber on the front there, and that is a genuine layer of genuine carbon fiber. But yeah, just a little bit more limited in the functionality than the Formula V2 wheel. So something that you guys will want to consider if you're looking at picking one of these up. In terms of access to the tuning menu and things like that, obviously this one does have the 7-segment display as opposed to the OLED display that we have on this one. In terms of, you know, actual usability, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. You can still access all the settings that you need to through the tuning menu anyway. But the other thing that it is lacking over the V2 wheels are the RGB LEDs along the top and on the side. So the flag LEDs as well as the LEDs here, you don't have the ability to configure those like you can with the more recent models. So just something else to consider. And again, we've gone through that in detail in some other videos, so I'll put some links down in the description below for you guys. And there are some really nice aftermarket magnetic paddle upgrades for this wheel as well, should you wish to go down that path. They only cost around sort of, you know, $15, $20 US, or you can just 3D print them yourself and source your own magnets. So yeah, really, really love the Formula Carbon wheel, and I would say that at a saving of $59.99 US, that is definitely a good buy if you're doing a lot of Formula style driving. Obviously, if you're doing more GT style, you might want to give this one a miss and have a look at the BMW or the Porsche wheel. So let's move on and have a look at those right now. So we'll set this guy aside as well. Push these guys out. And let's talk a little bit more about these two guys. Okay, so I think this is probably the thing that I've been seeing cropping up the most. People wondering whether they're better off buying the Porsche wheel or the BMW wheel. Now, I originally bought the BMW wheel, as I mentioned before, when I first got my Fanatec set up. So I've got a good over 2 years of experience driving with this wheel now. I've been using this one now for about a week and a half, sort of testing it out, in the lead up to doing this video. So I wanted to have a little bit of experience under my belt with this one too. Now, the reason I originally went with the BMW wheel over this one was simply because the BMW wheel was considerably cheaper and offers basically the same overall functionality. You can see between the two, very similar designs. They both got the hat switch on the, I can't even tell, my left-hand side, and the funky switch on the right-hand side, obviously being a 7-way switch, so left, right, up, down, push button, and rotary encoder. But otherwise, you can see the button configurations are very similar between the two. We've got the same access to the tuning menu as well, slightly larger, well, much larger 7-segment display on the BMW than we have with the Porsche. Only other difference being obviously the RPM gauge is located here on the BMW and up on the top of the wheel, and quite a lot brighter on the Porsche wheel than it is on the BMW wheel. So that's just a personal preference, sort of subjective thing. Other than that, functionality is very similar. One other thing I will draw attention to as well, if we flip them around, as you can see, this has basically the same paddles as the universal hub does. But although these look quite different, the feel between the two of them is very similar as well. So I'd say, look, there's not really a massive amount of reason to go with the Porsche wheel over the BMW wheel at the extra price. What's the price difference there? So at the sale price, so with the 20% off, the Porsche is $319.96 US, and the BMW is $239.96. Yeah, I'd say I probably would still go with the BMW wheel between the two, simply because of the price difference. Obviously, the main difference between the two being this one's Alcantara and this one is leather. Now, I haven't had any problems with the Alcantara wearing on this wheel over the time that I've had it. They're both 320mm diameter as well, so ergonomically the same in terms of the driving experience. So really the only difference comes down to the Porsche wheel is completely round, other than the little sort of hand grip shape here, whereas the BMW does have that slight D shape at the bottom there. Now, I was able to rally and drift pretty well with the BMW. I mean, my drifting sucks, but for me at least, I was able to drive quite well with this one. But if you are wanting to slip the wheel through your hands really, really smoothly, then the Porsche wheel is probably the better choice between the two for rally and drifting, I would say specifically. But for general GT style, I just don't really see a compelling reason to spend the extra on the Porsche wheel over the BMW wheel. I think that the BMW wheel, at least as far as GT wheels go, in the Fanatec range, is probably the best value wheel that they sell, in fact, because it just looks really nice. And yeah, it's just really a great wheel overall. Now, the other thing we do need to touch on that I know a lot of people have been asking about is weight as well. So if we have a look at the Porsche wheel, that weighs in at 1,690 grams, so 1.7 kilos-ish. And then the BMW wheel is quite a bit heavier at 2.120 grams, so 2.12 kilograms. Look, in terms of the driving experience, once again, I don't really notice a difference between the two. I know a lot of people have been worried, particularly on the CSL Elite, that the heavier wheel might be a problem. I didn't really feel that it muted the overall, sense of feeling that you get through the wheelbase. So look, I wouldn't be overly concerned about that. If you're really wanting to sort of extract every fine little bit of detail, then maybe the lighter wheel might be the better choice. But look, for me at least, I really can't tell the difference between the two. So once again, I would say, if you're really tearing your hair out trying to figure out a reason why you should go for the Porsche over the BMW wheel, the only real compelling reason I can think of is either you prefer the leather over the Alcantara, or you just really want to have a round wheel as opposed to a D-shaped wheel. But the D shape on this one is very, very, very subtle, and I really don't think it's going to make a massive difference to you. So I think that pretty much covers everything that we need to in terms of the deals. Obviously, as I said before, I've got a lot more detailed reviews of most of these products already up on the channel, so I'll link in the description for those. Obviously, the comparison between the two wheelbases in more detail, as well as our Fanatec 2020 buyer's guide, which goes into a lot of detail on a whole heap of products. The written version for that is linked down below for you guys as well. But yeah, look, I hope that this website where we've sort of collated all of the deals together, as well as this video and the other videos, helps you guys out in making your decisions. And yeah, as I said before, if you do want to help support the channel, please do use the links on that page. Otherwise, if you want to support your other favorite content creator, by all means, just use my website as a guide and go and click on their links to make your purchase. But thank you guys very much for watching. And yeah, as I said at the start of the video, let us know in the comments down below if you do spot any other awesome Black Friday deals. I'll of course keep you guys updated in the community section here, as well as guys on our Discord channel if I do come across anything else outstandingly amazing too. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you again soon. Bye.